Three. Well, welcome back to the channel, everyone. Wanted to do a severe weather update video here and talk about the potential for some pretty significant severe weather, both tomorrow, so that would be Monday, January 8th, stretching into Tuesday, January 9th as well. We've got a pretty potent upper level system that's going through the desert Southwest right now. It's going to be coming towards the southern plains here overnight and into the early Monday morning hours, and could set off some severe weather, including the threat for some tornadoes, maybe even a couple strong ones, really confined along the U.S. Gulf Coast, but we'll look a little bit more into the details in the specific target areas as well. So this map right here is our 500 millibar wind map. So this is kind of our jet stream. And you can see these darker colors, kind of those reds, purples, pinkish colors here. That's where you get those more significant winds. And so when we look at what the upper levels are going to be doing tomorrow, this would be about midday on Monday right here. And we can see that across Texas, we're going to have this low pressure system setting up over the Oklahoma, Texas panhandles right here. And then we have a lot of really strong, really fast wind speeds here aloft along the jet stream. They're going to be looping down into West Texas and then coming out and really creating a significant atmosphere for severe weather. Our target area for severe weather is going to be mainly along the Gulf Coast here. And that's really just due to the level of moisture that's currently present. If we had, this was maybe later in spring and we had moisture that was further inland, we'd be looking at a much more significant severe weather threat. But due to the level of moisture, and I think we can see that here, dew points. This is, again, looking at currently where our dew points are, according to the North American model here. Everywhere that you see these lightish colors, that's really, really dry air. And so anywhere really underneath this kind of purplish line, those are 50 and 60 degree dew points, really only about 50 degree dew points here, and they're just barely across the coast. So most of the moisture is down here in the Gulf of Mexico. Now we are going to see that change here overnight as this system digs down. It's going to pull this inland some. But again, there's really not much moisture that's present across the south or the plains, and that's why this isn't going to be a more widespread severe weather event. So when we do look at the outlook, this is the Day 2 Storm Prediction Center outlook for tomorrow. So again, Monday, January 8th. We do have a level 3 out of 5 enhanced risk here across southeastern Louisiana, extreme southern Mississippi, southwest Alabama, including Mobile, and then the western edge of the Florida Panhandle. We will have the threat. Likely these areas will be around sunset to overnight hours, which does make it a little bit more dangerous. And this is the area where we could see the greatest risk for some significant tornadoes. We do have a level 2 out of 5 slight risk all the way from southeast Texas, including the Houston metro, much of southern Louisiana, all the way over into southern Alabama, and a little bit of that Florida Panhandle. And also this marginal risk here, this extends really all the way, including Dallas-Fort Worth, Wichita Falls, Abilene area, all of northern Louisiana, much of Mississippi. And so we could see mainly some gusty winds, maybe a little bit of random hail here or there, not a significant threat up here, but certainly early morning hours, kind of that Monday morning commute in Dallas could see some severe wind gusts with that line of storm. So let's get in and look at the models here a little bit and kind of what we're looking at. Again, this would be our upper level wind map, that jet stream level, and this would be at about 1 p.m. Monday afternoon. So what we can see is these red colors here, that's our strongest winds. And so we've got our low pressure system sitting right here over the panhandles. We've got this strong flow kind of rounding the base of that trough. And then we certainly do have an environment where, again, the upper level winds aren't extremely strong here along the Gulf Coast. But what we can see is that the lower level winds are 850 millibar winds. When we do that same time frame, what we can see is that those brighter colors, and again, this is going to be not the surface, but a little bit above the surface. And this is very important for severe thunderstorms. We do see that the fastest winds, these yellow colors, are confined up here to Arkansas and Louisiana, and they're not across southeast Texas and Louisiana. This may tend to temper the severe threat and maybe the tornado threat a little bit, at least early afternoon across southeast Texas. As we move forward in time, and let's go maybe 5 hours ahead, what we'll see is that we start to see that southeastern Louisiana, we get those lower level winds to really start to pick up. That's why there's probably a little bit greater threat towards sunset in the overnight hours across Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida panhandle, because we will see these winds really pick up. And so we'll see how that progresses kind of overnight. But again, we will probably hear around that kind of early afternoon period. Still some stronger winds, 45 knots. That's more than enough for severe thunderstorms, but again, not as significant as 60 to 70 knot winds up here a little bit further to the north. Next thing that we do want to look at on the severe weather side of things is kind of look at where the instability is going to set up. So our energy helicity index will give us a good idea of kind of where that is. Again, this is around 1 p.m. Monday afternoon. We can see that really southeast Texas here is kind of our main bullseye. And so we'll have this kind of the cold front will be like this, and then this would be our warm front right here. And so as we set up here around 1 p.m., we do have this window. We would call this our warm sector where there's going to be instability. There's wind shear that's present. And so anywhere from the Houston metro area, even maybe the College Station, certainly Huntsville, this area of southeast Texas could be primed for a tornado threat and certainly some severe weather. Now, what is interesting is if I remove this and we move forward in time just a little bit, let's say we go forward 2 hours. Okay, we can kind of see how that moves a little bit further to the east. We go forward another 2 hours. What we can see is that the cold front really makes more progress than the warm front does, and that warm front really doesn't lift too much further north and come on shore anymore. And this starts to impinge further east, and it really starts to cut off that instability, keeping it mostly offshore. So I think that could limit the severe threat some, especially across southeast Texas and southwestern Louisiana. If this were to be moving further north and coming inland, like sometimes these setups will, that would produce much more of a threat across Louisiana and southeast Texas. But again, we're not really seeing that happen. Now, what we do see is that warm front does finally lift overnight, and I'll take a look at that here in a second. And that's why southeast Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida panhandle do see more of a threat. When we look, let's look at the simulated reflectivity for, again, 1 p.m. on Monday afternoon. What we can see is that here we do have some simulated showers here, and certainly some storms, maybe certainly more than showers. Nothing incredibly intense, but we do have some here north of Houston, across the piney woods here, even in southern Louisiana. These we would have to watch to see if they're potentially stronger than they're being modeled right now. Any one of those could be some smaller supercells that would be in an environment conducive to a tornado threat. So we do have to watch that. Again, I think one of the limiting factors may be a lot of cloud cover tomorrow. So did want to take a look at that just briefly here. If we look at, that's the wrong one, sorry. If we look at our simulated cloud cover here, again, this is 1 p.m. tomorrow. What we can see is that most of East Texas, all of Louisiana, Mississippi, were really covered in clouds. So that is going to keep some of that instability in those temperatures a little bit lower. Now, what we can see is there are a couple clearings kind of coming in from the southwest here. If this were to move a little bit further east than's being projected now, we might get some pockets of sunshine in southeast Texas, which could create more of that daytime heating, increase the instability, and increase the threat for some supercells and tornadoes. But again, right now it looks like it may be kind of messy and cloudy, and that may keep the temperatures a little bit on the lower side. So again, certainly could see a threat in southeast Texas for some tornadoes and supercells, but it's going to be dependent upon some factors, and it may just be a little bit too messy. Did want to take a look at a little bit further into our Monday night, and certainly more along the Gulf Coast and some of those elevated threats. I think to see that most, we can look at that instability and see that kind of coming on shore. So let me move forward in time. So here's our kind of southern Gulf Coast here. Let's move forward to around, this time period. Okay, so this would be around 5 p.m. Central Time on Monday evening. We can still see that instability axis, that warm front, is still mainly off the coast here. But as we move forward in time, let's move forward in time 3 hours. So we can see, again, this is about where the instability was now. It's further in southeast Louisiana, certainly starting to get an impact here. And then as we move forward into more of those overnight hours, we can see all of southeast Louisiana is certainly that instability. That warm front is moving further north, about to make landfall, for lack of a better word, here in Alabama and Florida. And then if we move forward in time again, this would be again early, kind of 3 a.m. time frame. Certainly Southwest Alabama, Mississippi, the Florida Panhandle. You see that warm front really lifting north here. That's why I think we're going to see the threat for some significant severe weather in those overnight hours on Monday night, early Tuesday morning. And if we look at that simulated radar here, again, there's a lot of storms that are being simulated, a little bit more of kind of a line along the front, but then also some of these just kind of bubbling storms out ahead here. And that would be in that instability. So we'll certainly have to be careful if you are in these areas. Be careful going to sleep, have some way to get watches and warnings. Maybe a NOAA weather radio that would wake you up if there were to be a tornado warning that's issued. Because again, this is going to be in the overnight hours, Monday, early Tuesday. Looks like it could be messy, but if we do get a little bit less storms than is kind of simulated right here, could see some tornado risk. Really, really, certainly some significant tornado risk. So it'll be worth watching. Again, a little bit messy here, but I think the instability the ingredients are there for a significant threat. So hopefully this update was helpful. Leave a comment if you're in any one of these areas. Are you excited for severe weather? Wish it would just be winter and not see any type of severe weather, and maybe just be focused on the cold temperatures coming next week? Leave a comment, let me know kind of what you're thinking, and I'll see you back here for the next video.